Well, hello there, family. Welcome back to Grandma's Kitchen. We've made quite a journey together, haven't we? We've cooked collard greens and learned about the Thanksgiving that taught us perfection isn't the point. We've made cornbread without measuring a single thing, learning to trust our hands and instincts. We've fried chicken the Saturday night way and heard about Grandma's first time at the stove. We've baked mac and cheese and learned about Sister Henderson and the church potluck that taught us there's room at the table for everyone. And now, we're finishing this soul food feast with dessert, Grandma's sweet potato pie. But this isn't just any sweet potato pie recipe. This is the pie that saved Thanksgiving in 1992. The pie that Grandma made in a kitchen filled with panic and broken glass and desperate family members. The pie that proved sometimes the biggest disasters lead to the sweetest memories. So let me tell you about the Thanksgiving morning when everything went wrong, and how Grandma's sweet potato pie made everything right. Before we start making this pie, I need to tell you about Thanksgiving in our family, because it's always been the biggest holiday of the year. Bigger than Christmas, bigger than Easter, bigger than anybody's birthday. Thanksgiving is when the whole family comes together, and I mean the whole family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, people who aren't technically related but have been around so long they might as well be family. We're talking 30, 40, sometimes 50 people, all gathered in Grandma's house, all expecting to be fed, all expecting that traditional soul food Thanksgiving spread. And dessert at Thanksgiving? That's serious business. We're not talking about 1 or 2 pies. We're talking about 8, 10, sometimes 12 different pies covering every surface in the dining room. Sweet potato pie, pecan pie, apple pie, lemon meringue, chocolate cream, coconut cream, cherry pie, pumpkin pie. The dessert table at our Thanksgiving looks like a bakery exploded in the best possible way. Now, Grandma always made the sweet potato pies herself. That was her thing. Other people could bring the other pies, but the sweet potato pies? Those were Grandma's responsibility, and she took that responsibility seriously. She'd make 6 sweet potato pies every Thanksgiving, and they'd all be gone by the end of the night. People would be fighting over the last slice. Cousins would be hiding pieces in the kitchen to save for later. Uncle James would try to take a whole pie home, and Grandma would have to smack his hand and tell him to share. But Thanksgiving 1992 was different. That was the year when everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and Grandma had to save the day with nothing but sweet potatoes, eggs, and pure determination. Let me set the scene for you. It was Thanksgiving morning, about 7 a.m. Grandma had been up since 5, already working on the turkey, the dressing, the greens. My mama was there helping, and so was my Aunt Carol and my Aunt Joyce. The kitchen was controlled chaos. Pots on every burner, the oven full, timers going off, everyone moving around each other in that practice dance that comes from years of cooking together. Now, here's where the problem started. My Uncle Robert had offered to pick up the pies from the bakery the night before. See, even though Grandma always made the sweet potato pies, other family members would buy the other pies from this particular bakery in town that made really good pies. And Uncle Robert had volunteered to pick them up on Wednesday night and bring them to Grandma's house. But Uncle Robert forgot. He got busy with work, got home late, and completely forgot about the pies. He didn't remember until Thanksgiving morning when his wife asked him where they were. And instead of calling Grandma right away to tell her what happened, he decided he'd just run to the grocery store that morning and buy some pies there. No big deal, right? The grocery store has pies. Problem solved. Except it wasn't solved, because Uncle Robert got to the grocery store at 7 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. And of course, they were already out of pies. Completely out. Every single pie had been sold. The bakery section was empty except for some sad-looking cookies and a few loaves of bread. So Uncle Robert, now starting to panic, drove to another grocery store. Also out of pies. Drove to a third store. Out of pies. Finally, desperately, he went to one of those convenience store bakeries that's usually not very good, but at least has something. They had pies. Old pies. Pies that had been there for who knows how long. Pies in slightly dented boxes. But pies nonetheless. Uncle Robert bought every pie they had, 8 pies total, and he drove to Grandma's house, arriving around 8:30, carrying these 8 somewhat questionable pies in a big cardboard box, hoping nobody would notice they weren't from the good bakery. He came in through the back door, trying to be quiet, trying to just slip these pies onto the dining room table without anyone asking too many questions. But Grandma has eyes in the back of her head, always has. She was at the stove stirring her greens, but she turned around the second Uncle Robert walked in. "Robert, what are those?" she asked, looking at the box. "The pies," Uncle Robert said, trying to sound casual. "From the bakery." "Those are not from our bakery," Grandma said immediately. "Our bakery puts their pies in white boxes with blue ribbon. Those are brown boxes." Uncle Robert's face fell. "Okay, so, funny story." And that's when he had to confess. He forgot to pick up the pies last night. The good bakery was closed. All the grocery stores were out. These were from a convenience store, and they were the only pies he could find. And he was really sorry. The kitchen went silent. My mama stopped chopping. Aunt Carol stopped stirring. Aunt Joyce put down the bowl she was holding. Everyone just stared at Uncle Robert. "Robert," Grandma said, and her voice was very calm, which is somehow scarier than if she'd been yelling, "We have 40 people coming to this house in 5 hours. 40 people who are expecting dessert. And you're telling me all we have is 8 old convenience store pies? And your sweet potato pies," Uncle Robert said hopefully. "You're making sweet potato pies, right?" "I'm making 3 sweet potato pies," Grandma said. 3 for 40 people. That's not enough." "Can you make more?" Uncle Robert asked. "Robert, I've got a turkey in the oven, dressing to make, greens cooking, mac and cheese to bake, green beans to finish, rolls to warm up, and about 17 other dishes to prepare. When exactly am I supposed to make more pies?" This is when my mama tried to help. "Mama, maybe these store pies are okay. Let's just put them out and see. People will eat them." Grandma walked over to where Uncle Robert had set down the box and opened it. She pulled out one of the pies and looked at it. The crust was pale and sad looking. The filling looked artificial. The whole pie had this weird chemical smell. "Joyce," Grandma said, "go get me a fork." Aunt Joyce got a fork and handed it to Grandma. Grandma cut into one of the pies, took a small bite, chewed thoughtfully, and then made a face like she'd just tasted something truly terrible. "Absolutely not," she said. "I am not serving this to my family on Thanksgiving. This tastes like chemicals and sadness." "But Mama, what are we going to do?" my mama asked. "We don't have time to go buy more pies, and even if we did, everywhere is out." Grandma stood there for a moment thinking, and then she said, "We'll make our own. We'll make all the pies ourselves." "All of them?" Aunt Carol said. "Mama, that's like 10 pies. We don't have time." "Then we'll make what we can," Grandma said. "Get me every sweet potato in this house. Get me the flour, the butter, the eggs. We're making sweet potato pies, as many as we can." So began the great pie-making marathon of Thanksgiving 1992. Grandma handed off her other cooking tasks to my aunts and my mama. "Carol, you watch the greens. Joyce, you handle the turkey. Sarah, you start on the mac and cheese. I'm making pies. Now let me show you how to make Grandma's sweet potato pie. The pie she made that frantic Thanksgiving morning, the pie that's been requested at every family gathering since." First, we need to talk about the sweet potatoes themselves, because this is where it all starts. I've got 3 large sweet potatoes here. In the South, we call them sweet potatoes, though some people call them yams. And there's actually a difference botanically, but in soul food cooking, we just call them sweet potatoes, and everyone knows what we mean. You want the orange fleshed ones, not the pale ones. The orange ones are sweeter and creamier and make a better pie. Now, there are 2 ways to cook sweet potatoes for pie. You can bake them in the oven, which gives them a deeper, more caramelized flavor. Or you can boil them on the stovetop, which is faster. On that Thanksgiving morning, Grandma didn't have time for baking, so she boiled them. And honestly, for pie, boiling works just fine. I'm going to peel these sweet potatoes first, cutting away the skin with a vegetable peeler. Then I'm cutting them into chunks, about 1-inch pieces. The smaller you cut them, the faster they'll cook. I'm putting all these chunks into a large pot and covering them with cold water. I'm adding a pinch of salt to the water. Not much, just enough to season them slightly. Now I'm putting this pot on the stove over high heat and bringing it to a boil. Once it's boiling, I'll turn it down to medium-high and let these sweet potatoes cook until they're fork tender, which will take about 15 to 20 minutes. While those are cooking, let me tell you what happened next that Thanksgiving morning. Grandma had sent Uncle Robert to the store with a list. More sweet potatoes, more butter, more eggs, more evaporated milk, more sugar. "And drive fast," she told him. "But not so fast you get pulled over. We don't have time for that either." Grandma started pulling out all her pie-making equipment. Mixing bowls, measuring cups, pie pans, rolling pins. She cleared off the entire kitchen table and covered it with flour. She was moving with purpose, with determination, with the focus of a woman on a mission. My mama said, watching Grandma work. "How many pies are you going to make?" "As many as I can before 1 o'clock, Grandma said. "That gives me 4.5 hours. If I work fast, I can make 8 pies. Maybe 9 if I'm lucky." "9 pies in 4 hours? Aunt Joyce said. "Mama, that's impossible. Watch me," Grandma said. And we did. We all watched as Grandma worked faster than I'd ever seen her work. While the sweet potatoes were boiling, she made pie crust. While the pie crusts were chilling, she mixed the filling. While one batch of pies was baking, she was already preparing the next batch. She moved through that kitchen like a woman possessed, like a pie-making machine, like someone who would not be defeated by Uncle Robert's forgetfulness or convenience store pies. My sweet potatoes are fork tender now. I can stick a fork in them and they're soft all the way through. I'm draining them in a colander and letting them cool for just a minute or two. While they're still warm, I'm going to mash them, because warm sweet potatoes mash more smoothly than cold ones. I'm putting these cooked sweet potatoes in a large bowl, and I'm using a potato masher to mash them completely smooth. You want to really work these until there are no lumps at all. Some people use a hand mixer or a food processor, and that works fine too. The goal is completely smooth sweet potato puree. Keep mashing until you can't feel any lumps when you run your spoon through it. Look at this. This is perfect. Smooth, creamy, no lumps. I have about 3 cups of mashed sweet potato here, which is exactly what I need for 2 pies. Now, before we make the filling, let's talk about the crust. You can use store-bought pie crust if you want to. There's no shame in that, and it'll save you time. But Grandma made her crusts from scratch that day, even under all that time pressure, because she said a homemade crust makes all the difference. I'm going to show you how to make a simple pie crust. It's not complicated, but it does require cold butter and a light hand. In this bowl, I've got 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm adding a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. I'm whisking this together to distribute everything evenly. Now for the butter. I'm using 2 sticks of butter. That's 1 cup. And it needs to be very cold, straight from the refrigerator. I'm cutting it into small cubes, about 1/2-inch pieces. I'm adding these cold butter cubes to the flour mixture. Now here's the key to good pie crust. You want to work the butter into the flour until it resembles coarse crumbs, with some pea-sized pieces of butter still visible. Those little bits of butter are what make the crust flaky. I'm using a pastry cutter to cut the butter into the flour, but you can also use 2 knives or even your fingers. If you use your fingers, work quickly so your body heat doesn't melt the butter. See how it's looking like coarse meal with some bigger butter pieces? Perfect! Now I'm adding ice-cold water, just a little at a time, mixing with a fork until the dough just starts to come together. I'm using about 6 tablespoons of water total. The dough should hold together when you squeeze it, but not be wet or sticky. I'm turning this dough out onto my counter and gently bringing it together into a ball. I'm dividing it in half, flattening each half into a disc, and wrapping them in plastic wrap. These need to chill in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes before rolling out. On that Thanksgiving morning, Grandma didn't have 30 minutes to chill each batch of dough. She made up multiple batches at once, so while one batch was chilling, she could work with another. She had pie dough in the refrigerator, pie crust rolling out on the table, pies in the oven, and pies cooling on the counter, all at the same time. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance. Around 10 o'clock, Uncle Robert came back from the store with more supplies. "How many have you made?" he asked Grandma. 4 pies are done, 2 are in the oven, and I'm working on the next batch, Grandma said without looking up from rolling out pie crust. "You're amazing, Mama," Uncle Robert said. "You're buying me a new pie pan for Christmas," Grandma replied. "A nice one, an expensive one, because you're never forgetting to pick up pies again." "Yes, ma'am," Uncle Robert said humbly. "Now let's make the filling. My sweet potatoes have cooled enough to work with. I'm adding 1/2 cup of melted butter to these mashed sweet potatoes, stirring it in until it's completely incorporated. Now I'm adding 1 cup of granulated sugar. Some people use less sugar, some use more, but 1 cup per 2 pies is Grandma's measurement. I'm stirring this in thoroughly. Now for the eggs. I'm using 3 eggs for this amount of filling, and I'm beating them lightly before adding them. This helps them incorporate more easily. I'm stirring these eggs into the sweet potato mixture. Now comes one of the secret ingredients that makes Grandma's sweet potato pie special: evaporated milk. Not regular milk, not sweetened condensed milk, but evaporated milk. One 12-ounce can, which is about 1.5 cups. The evaporated milk gives the pie a unique richness and a slightly caramelized flavor that you can't get from regular milk. I'm pouring this evaporated milk into the sweet potato mixture and stirring until everything is smooth and well combined. Now for the spices. This is what makes sweet potato pie taste like potato pie and not just cooked sweet potatoes. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. Some people also add a pinch of ground cloves, and that's fine if you like cloves. I'm also adding just a tiny pinch of salt to balance all the sweetness. I'm stirring all these spices into the filling until everything is completely smooth and uniform in color. Taste this filling right now. It should taste delicious even before it's baked. If it doesn't taste good now, it won't taste good baked. This is perfect. The filling is smooth, creamy, sweet, but not too sweet, with warm spices that make you think of fall and holidays and home. By 11 o'clock that Thanksgiving morning, Grandma had 6 pies cooling on the counter and was working on pies 7 and 8. The kitchen smelled absolutely incredible. Sweet potatoes and cinnamon and butter all baking together. The family members who'd started arriving early kept walking by the kitchen and asking when they could have a slice. After dinner, Grandma would say each time. Y'all know the rules. Dessert comes after dinner. But Mama, they smell so good, someone would complain. After dinner, Grandma would repeat firmly. My pie crusts have been chilling for 30 minutes. I'm taking 1 disc of dough out and letting it sit on the counter for a minute or 2 to soften slightly. If you try to roll it straight from the refrigerator, it'll crack. I'm flouring my work surface and my rolling pin. I'm placing the dough disc in the center of the floured surface and rolling from the center out, turning the dough a 1/4 turn after each roll. This helps keep it circular and prevents it from sticking. I'm rolling this to about 1/8 inch thick, which gives you a sturdy crust that won't get soggy from the filling, but isn't so thick it's tough. Once it's rolled out, I'm draping it over my rolling pin to transfer it to my pie pan. I'm centering it in the pan and gently pressing it into the bottom and sides, being careful not to stretch it. If you stretch pie dough, it'll shrink back when it bakes. I'm trimming the excess dough, leaving about 1 inch of overhang. I'm folding this overhang under itself to create a thick edge, and then I'm crimping it with my fingers to make it decorative. You can crimp it however you like, with a fork, with your fingers, with a special pie crimping tool if you have one. There's no wrong way as long as it looks intentional. Now I'm pouring my filling into this prepared crust. The filling should come up to about 3/4 of an inch from the top of the crust. You don't want to overfill it or it'll bubble over in the oven. This pie is going into a preheated 350-degree oven for 55 to 60 minutes. You'll know it's done when the center is set, but still has a slight jiggle when you shake the pan gently. The edges will be slightly puffed and may crack a little bit, and that's perfectly normal. Around noon, disaster struck. My cousin David, who was about 12 years old at the time, was running through the kitchen, which he'd been told not to do multiple times. And he ran straight into my Aunt Carol, who was carrying 3 of the finished pies to the dining room. The pies went flying. 3 beautiful sweet potato pies crashed onto the floor in an explosion of filling and crust and broken glass from the pie pans. Everyone froze. The kitchen went silent. My cousin David looked like he wanted to die right there on the spot. My Aunt Carol stood there with her empty hands out, staring at the mess on the floor in horror. And then, everyone looked at Grandma. Grandma was standing at the counter, rolling out another pie crust. She'd heard the crash. She'd seen the pies fall. She looked at the mess on the floor, looked at my cousin David's terrified face, looked at my Aunt Carol's horrified expression, and then she looked at the clock. It was 12:15. Guests would start arriving in 45 minutes. She took a deep breath. And then she did something unexpected. She laughed. Not a mean laugh or a bitter laugh, a real laugh. A laugh that said, "Of course this would happen today. Of course it would." "Well," Grandma said, still chuckling, "I guess we know which 3 pies David's not getting any of." Everyone laughed, relieved that Grandma wasn't angry, that she wasn't yelling, that she was somehow finding this funny instead of tragic. "David, go get the broom and clean this up," Grandma said. "Carol, it's okay, it was an accident." And everybody else, back to work. We've still got food to finish. My mama went over to where Grandma was working. Mama, you made 9 pies this morning, and now 3 of them are on the floor. We're back to 6 pies for 40 people. Then 6 pies will have to be enough, Grandma said. Sometimes things don't go according to plan. Sometimes you do your best and it's still not perfect. But you know what? This family is still going to have a good Thanksgiving. They're still going to eat well. They're still going to have sweet potato pie, even if there's not quite as much as we'd normally have. And they're going to be grateful for what they have instead of complaining about what they don't have. And that's exactly what happened. Dinner was served right on time at 1 o'clock. 40 family members crowded into Grandma's house, filling every seat at every table, sitting on folding chairs and couches and anywhere they could find space. The food was incredible as always. The turkey was perfect, the dressing was phenomenal, the greens were amazing, the mac and cheese was cheesy and delicious. And when it came time for dessert, Grandma brought out her 6 sweet potato pies. She cut them into smaller pieces than usual, so there'd be enough for everyone to have some. And you know what? Nobody complained. Nobody said, "Why are the pieces so small?" Or, "Where are all the other pies?" They just ate and enjoyed, and said it was the best sweet potato pie Grandma had ever made. My Uncle Robert stood up at the end of the meal and made a little speech. "I need to say something," he announced to the whole family. "I messed up this Thanksgiving. I forgot to pick up the pies, and then I got cheap gas station pies, and then Mama had to spend her whole morning making these sweet potato pies instead of relaxing and enjoying the holiday. And then 3 of those pies ended up on the floor because David can't walk through a kitchen without running into things." Everyone laughed at this, including David. "But you know what?" Uncle Robert continued. "These 6 sweet potato pies right here are better than any 12 store-bought pies. And watching Mama make 9 pies in 4 hours this morning reminded me of something important. Our family doesn't need fancy bakery pies. We don't need everything to be perfect. What we need is each other, and this food that's made with love, and this time together. So thank you, Mama, for saving Thanksgiving. And I'm sorry I forgot the pies. It'll never happen again." Everyone clapped, and Grandma smiled and said, "You're right, it won't happen again, because you're buying the pies from now on, and you're buying them the week before Thanksgiving and storing them at your house so this never happens again." More laughter, more pie, more family togetherness. My pie has been baking for about 50 minutes now. I'm checking it by giving the pan a gentle shake. The edges are firm and slightly puffed, and the center has just a slight jiggle. That's perfect. If the center is completely firm and not jiggly at all, the pie is overcooked and will crack significantly as it cools. A slight jiggle means it's going to set up perfectly as it cools. I'm taking it out of the oven and setting it on a cooling rack. This needs to cool completely before you cut into it. At least 3 to 4 hours, or overnight is even better. I know that's hard when it smells this amazing, but if you cut into it while it's still hot, the filling will be too soft and won't slice cleanly. Look at how beautiful this pie is. The top is slightly cracked, which is normal and traditional for sweet potato pie. The color is this gorgeous deep orange. It smells like cinnamon and nutmeg and sweet potatoes and home. This is the pie that saved Thanksgiving 1992. This is the pie that Grandma made 9 times in 4 hours under intense time pressure. This is the pie that proved sometimes the best memories come from the days when everything goes wrong, but you figure it out anyway. What Grandma taught me that Thanksgiving wasn't really about pie. It was about adapting when plans fall apart. It was about working hard when you have to. It was about laughing when things go wrong instead of crying. It was about being grateful for what you have instead of upset about what you don't have. She taught me that perfection isn't the point. 6 pies made with love and effort are better than 12 store-bought pies. A Thanksgiving where something goes wrong but everyone comes together to fix it is more memorable than a Thanksgiving where everything goes perfectly. And she taught me that sometimes the disasters become the stories we tell for years. That Thanksgiving is now legendary in our family. It's the Thanksgiving when Uncle Robert forgot the pies, when Grandma made 9 pies in one morning, when David knocked 3 of them on the floor, when we all learned that family and food and togetherness matter more than having everything perfect. Thank you for being here with me in Grandma's kitchen today. Thank you for letting me teach you how to make her sweet potato pie, and for letting me share the story of the Thanksgiving it saved. I hope your pie turns out beautiful. I hope you serve it to people you love. I hope it becomes part of your family's traditions. Next time in Grandma's Kitchen, we'll continue building our soul food repertoire. There are so many more recipes and stories to share. Until then, take care. Make some sweet potato pie. Remember that things don't have to be perfect to be wonderful. And carry Grandma's lesson with you. The best memories often come from the days when everything goes wrong, but love makes everything right. God bless you, family. I'll see you next time.